Welcome to Learning About Housing, your housing training. As we walk to Newhall West, the new location of the housing office, let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to be introduced to the housing staff. We'll get to meet them and learn a little bit about what they do in the office. Then we're going to talk about check-in day, waiting period, RCFs, roster verification, room changes, administrative moves, assignments, contract review, checkout procedures, New Year's contracts, and rosters. This is a very important office to know about. You won't necessarily visit their office a lot, but your students may, and you're going to want to be able to give them great advice and direction. Closest to you when entering the housing office is Michelle Zamansky. Her and Nassim Schwab, located behind her, are responsible for housing assignments. So if you had one of our typical great roommate experiences, then they are the ones to thank. Next, I'd like to introduce Aaron Foote. If you ever wanted to know how truly hard it is to move around hundreds of students on a campus of more than 8,000, talk to her. When your roommate is assigned a permanent space, she is the one who worked through all those logistics. She's a great person to ask any housing-related questions. Next, I'd like to introduce Ken Belcher. You may have only seen his name on emails, but I assure you he does exist. Ken deals with angry parents and students, which are the things that aren't fun about his job, but he also gets to plan things like barbecues that Housing and Dining will do this year, which are the really fun things about his job. He's also the information source for housing, so watch out for emails from Ken. The assignments area and you. Check-in day. Anyone that arrives on campus that does not have a room assignment needs to be sent to the main office, Newhall West, Suite 144. Room change requests will not be honored until after roster verification is completed, which will be around mid-September. If it is an emergency, students requesting room changes should come to the main office. Please call the main office in advance as a heads up. They really appreciate it. Nobody checks into a room without either A, being on the roster in that space, or B, having a written notice from the assignments office. Call the assignment staff if you have any questions about the validity of a person attempting to pick up a key. The roster needs to reflect the truth, which is why roster verification is so critical. It is imperative that they know who is here and where everyone is living, so that when you are completing roster verification, you must see the student before assuming that he or she is living in the room. At this point, we are over occupancy, but not significantly so. In fact, we have a relatively small overage this year. There are approximately 100 students assigned as RA roommates in temporary housing this year. As space becomes available prior to the start of the semester, students in temporary assignments will be notified of their assignment change via email. After the semester starts, students will be contacted via email once it is their turn to select a permanent assignment. There is no list of students in temporary housing that is posted or viewable for students or staff. Visiting the office or contacting the assignment staff about your personal circumstances will not give you an edge on getting your roommate a permanent housing offer. Such actions are discouraged. We appreciate your patience as we reassign students from these spaces into standard rooms and expect that you will welcome your roommate when he or she moves in. Waiting period. Friday, the 28th of August, 2009 is the check-in deadline. Late arrivals should notify the housing office if they will be arriving after move-in. RCFs. Each resident must have a room condition form, an RCF, completed for them by staff. Information included on the form must be legible, complete, and accurate. Residents can add information to the document during check-in before signing it. All residents must sign their RCF. Upon moving out, staff must complete the checkout portion of the RCF either with the student, proper checkout, or after the student leaves, express or improper checkout. Completed RCFs must be turned into the area office within 24 hours. Do not hold on to RCFs that need to be processed. Student bills can be adversely affected, and it is unacceptable. Roster verification is a process that you'll hear more about from your supervisor. It must be accurate and legible. It must list all discrepancies. You must check personally and not from memory, and it must be submitted by the deadline given. No exceptions. Room changes. At the beginning of the year, permission must be obtained from Aaron Foote or Kim Belcher before any movement occurs. After the regular room change process begins, students can pursue room changes through their designated area offices. Vacancy lists will be available after roster verification is complete. Room change requests must be completed and signed by resident advisors. The student who moves has keys to both rooms for no more than 3 days to complete the move. The room change is complete when the keys and signed RCF are received by the area office. Failure to move in allotted time may result in improper checkout or failure to comply charges. The housing office will notify CNS, the mailroom, and update the roster. Room changes are not an easy out of a roommate conflict. Students should be encouraged to resolve their conflicts through mediation, and no student will move into an empty room alone. Administrative moves and assignments. Sometimes discretionary moves are done by the housing office. Neither RA signature nor new roommate signature is required. Phone and email notification will be provided if the housing assignments can, but it is not guaranteed. All vacancies are subject to administrative assignment. Students may not refuse a roommate. They are contracted for double occupancy and have no control over how a vacant bed in their room is assigned unless the room has been designated as a single. Students who are turning roommates away repeatedly may be contacted by staff members to reinforce policies and procedures. There are 13 designated single occupancy rooms in Payne Hall. There are also some approved medical singles in residence halls. If you notice that a student on your roster is in the room by his or herself, do not assume that it is an assignable vacancy. Consult with the main office if you have any questions. Contract review. Students that seek to be released from their contracts to move off campus must pursue the contract review process. Please refer students interested in this to the main office to consult with the staff. RA should not interpret the contract or give summary judgment about the likelihood that a contract will be canceled. Procedure is to be followed even during peak occupancy levels. All requests must be presented in writing from the students to be considered. Email is preferred. Hearings are scheduled as soon as possible. Checkout procedures. The room must be cleared out before the RA signs the room condition form. RCFs and keys must be presented to the area office before the resignation form will be signed. RAs should not sign resignation forms. Area office managers and housing staff are the only ones authorized. If the checkout is at night, the student should request that the area office manager sign the form the day of the checkout, and then the RA should take the key and RCF and submit it to the area office the following workday. The housing office will forward it to the registrar's office. Next year's contracts and processes. Housing application process lottery sign-up will take place the week of January 25th. All returning students that are interested in returning to on-campus housing must enter HAP. This includes residence life staff. Exceptions are only made for VTCC, Oak Lane, and graduate students. Students will be notified of contract offer status the first week of February and must return completed contracts by February 14th. Students that did not enter the lottery or neglected to complete their contract offer will be able to sign up on a wait list after HAP concludes. Rosters. All old rosters must be turned in for shredding within 24 hours of receipt of the new rosters. Rosters are not cheap. They will be run at housing's discretion as needed by staff. Please talk with your supervisor. The rosters are confidential, so make sure that you keep them as such. General issues. Keep the housing office informed of potential situations that may blow up or if a student is headed their way. And in return, they will do their best to provide us with updates about affected areas.